So let's start Hilchos Tola'im. The Torah in Parsha Shmini, which we learned not too long ago, asert to eat Tola'im and Sherutzim. There's a lot of psikim which the Torah talks about this subject. If you remember, it's only 2 weeks ago, the Torah says, V'chal asheres hashores al ha'uretz lo ye'uchal. That's one posik. Then there's a posik al hoylech al guchoin, v'chal asheres hashores al ha'uretz lo yisoichlim. A posik al tashaksis nafshasaychem v'chal asheres aroi mais al ha'uretz. Lo yisitami behem. The Torah keeps on referring and going over such a posik with such a word, amazonish essen Tola'im, Sherutzim v'Tola'im. There's a couple of categories of the Tola'im, and not everything has the same Isser, but at least we see that the Torah keeps on referring to bringing down the Isser with a different posik, and therefore the halacha is that you are over on every posik, which is not like people like Chazer, you're over only on one Isser, or a person eats other kind fish which is not kosher, so over one Isser. Over here, you are going to be over X amount of times such a sheretz, more. We're going to come to that. So there's 3 kinds of sherotzim the Torah talks. The Torah says, "V'chal asheres hashoretz al ha'uretz." What is sheretz hashoretz al ha'uretz? These refers to worms, spiders, all kind of what is it called? It's probably in English to have word for them, which is ladybugs, ants, all these kind of things which just creep on the floor. That's called sheretz hashoretz al ha'uretz, and thus is called a sheretz. Now it's only when it's small. If it becomes very big. By the way, a nochash is also a sheretz hashoretz. A lizard or a snake, all this is also a sheretz hashoretz. But I mean, anything which looks like an animal, a chay, like the behemoth, and it doesn't have this munah tahara, is not in this category. It's the isser of achilas, dvurim, behemoth tamayim, the chay tamayim. And it's only one isser. Only things which is sherotzim is the isser goes into the category of sheretz hashoretz. Then there's sheretz hamayim, which is also worms. What is it called? Kalvayom. What is it called in English? Sea lions, something like that. Seahorses, maybe. Okay, seahorses. Ich kenne the English terminology, all these things, but all what in the water there's all kind of things, worms which in the water, which that goes into the gather of sheretz hamayim. But again, only when it looks like sherotzim. If it looks like a fish, it goes out of this category. It goes into fish which is not kosher if it doesn't have the simona. And again, fish is only one isser. Sheretz hamayim is a different isser. So we have to realize what it means. It's small things which is in the water, but doesn't look like a fish. That's called sheretz hamayim. Then there is sheretz ha'of, flying sherotzim, which is bees, flies, mosquitoes, all these kind of things goes into the gather. Also, grasshoppers is in this category. It's sheretz, and all these things goes into the isser of sheretz ha'oif. Now, grasshoppers, there are some which is kosher. Let me make it clear. Although we don't use it. Only the Yemenite Jews will use it because there's a lot of tenuim how to identify which one is kosher, and it has to have a masoira, and only in Yemen they used to have this masoira. But again, we don't eat it. But akaponim sheretz, the Torah gives us an exception that grasshopper is matter, but all other things which is flying goes into the gather of sheretz ha'of. Now again, it has to be like a sheretz. If it is bigger, it looks like a bird that goes out from the gather of sheretz ha'oif and goes into the gather of oif tuma, which again is only one iser, not like sheretz ha'oif, which is more isirim. So again, sheretz hamayim, sheretz ha'uretz, the sheretz ha'oif. These are the three. Now the halacha is, if a person eats sheretz ha'oif, a fly, is there over b'shishu asirim, 6 asirim. 6 times we see it in the Torah, 6 lavim, there are 6 malchus. If a person eats sheretz ha'uretz, a bug, which is on the floor, he's over a 5 asirim. A person eats sheretz hamayim, he's over a 4 asirim. Because this is the time how the Torah mentions the asirim, and every time the Torah mentions it, is an extra isir. It's not like, again, like animals, chazer or whatever, which even the Torah mentions it twice, once in Parashas Ra'ai, and once in Parashas Shmini, it's one isser. But when it comes to shirot, since the Torah constantly keeps on repeating themselves, so that means if you eat a fly, if you eat a worm, can man have 6 isirim. 6, 5 and 4. It's interesting. There's a Sefer Menches Yehuda, which has a very nice thing which he shares. It says in the Sefer Sadibras, "Lesaser lechu pesel v'chol tmuna asher b'shamayim emal v'al asher b'uretz metuchas v'asher b'mayim natachas leuretz." This is the passage which we all know. So he says this goes on iser shrotzim. And how many allow me over? It says like this. It says asher b'shamayim. Whatever is ashmaim, that means sheretz oif, is with the luchademels. That's mimal. Mimal. That's the highest. Which is the highest? 6. We said we have 6, 5, and 4. Asher b'shamayim, whatever is sheretz oif, that's shemayim. That's mimal. That's the highest. That's 6 lavim. Then it says v'asher b'uretz, whatever is in the uretz. That means sheretz off mituchas. It's one level lower. What's one level lower than sheretz oif? The sheretz oif. That's only 5 lavim. Then it says v'asher mamayim. Whatever is in mamayim, which is sheretz hamayim, mitachas leuretz. That's one level lower than mitachas leuretz. So again, sheretz oif is going to be 6 lavim. Sheretz hamayim is going to be sheretz ha'uretz going to be 5 lavim. And sheretz hamayim is going to be 4 lavim. So remember, when we eat something which has a worm, it is 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, or the 4, whatever it is, over of lavim, and every time is an extra iser, and extra iser deraisa, and it's extra malchus. When sigvena in for malchus. So we should realize what? Yeah, but it shows us the choymere iser. Shows the choymere. In the Steitnes Forum, the Friediger poskim zugas. That's why the Torah. Why is the Torah keeps on giving another lav, with another lav, another lav? Why? Why is the only issue we have 10 lav, 6 lav, 5 lav? Why? All of chazer. Bayina chazer, one lav. Why is it so much? Zugen the poskim, since this is a iser which is very hard to be be safe, because it's very tiny, it's very hard to be boidik. Therefore, the Torah tells you, listen to me, it's a big iser. Make all your efforts to clean whatever food you eat, because you should know there's a lot of asirim. That's why the Torah gave more asirim. The Torah wanted we should take the extra effort, goes the extra mile, in the person. To go the extra mile in order that you should basically make sure that the food is clean, because I don't want you should eat these things. Kemivim was the reason. And as I mentioned by one of the shiurim, the Prichudish writes that one of the reasons why we see boys, which were good boys, learning boys, implicitly they stopped eating, they stopped learning, and they fry out. Zug the Prichudish, it is because minish makbat machulas asiras, especially on Tola'im, and therefore they don't feel like Geschmack in Torah, they don't feel like Geschmack in Eibishter, therefore they. That's why, and there's the Tzatan Prichudish, which is 300 years ago, which he already says in our time we see people.
More than treif food?
What?
More than treif?
No, it's not more than treif. All the machul masirim is v'tam the masalef. But machul masirim we're away. We don't eat chazer, we don't eat a horse, and we don't eat shrimps. So this is things which people do not eat. So what do we say? Well, when it comes to worms, but therefore we see the pirates on it. A worm is osir. A worm is osir even when it's very small. And the Lashon Rambam is afila hipachis min achardel. In Chazal, they want to say that something is very tiny. We say chardel. That's a mustard. Is the mustard which I never saw, a mustard bean. But the mustard bean has to be very tiny, and that's why even Chazal, when it comes to Yerdai Chalik Mais, steht as Benois Yisroel Yichmiri al Atzmam afile roi dam kechardel. Then afen. The pshat is, you see, when Chazal want to say something very tiny, they say in the chardel. Zuk the Rambam, you should know a worm is osir even if it's smaller than a chardel. It's also usir. But that's only as long as you see it. As long as you see it means as long as you can see it with your eyes. If you see it only with a microscope, if you only see it on a loop, without a loop, you're not going to see anything. That's not usar. And why? The Torah had gesucht only when a person could eat it, could see it, then it's an isar. Why? Because the Torah gave a serum which we could apply it to our lives. The Torah did not say that a yid has to go around with a loop or with a microscope or whatever it should be, which I think he cannot see, that he cannot eat. There's no such thing. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. Yeah, that's the clarity. And therefore, anything how does it called? Microscopic. I won't say chadakim. Germs, but microorganisms. Every chadakim which you could see with a microscope, but you cannot see it regularly, it's not osir. That's why one of the reasons there was in the Friedige Poiskim, there was a whole shaila when the microscopes came out or whatever, and they looked under on choimatz, on vinegar. If you realize, you see constantly, and you see things which if you ever saw it, you're never going to eat it again. In the Poiskim, hamarim gishmi Allah than a matter masa. But they say that's the reason. Nit the Torah machashuras. If there is a thing which I cannot see, the Torah is ge'asad. I have to be able to see it, and if I don't see it, is the pshat is if you can if you would have be oyster only with a microscope, all the air is filled with chadakim, with germs, and all this is living material. Even though, and maybe you're not allowed to breathe, the teretz is a thing which we don't see. It's not a problem. But that means you cannot see with your eyes. Nobody can see with your eyes. If a thing which you can see with your eyes for a person which has a good eyesight, has a good 20/20 eyesight, then that's awesome. Although we look at this room, is there anyone who doesn't have glasses? None of them. Nobody has a good eyesight. And b'chlal, it gets weaker and weaker. Zukt up them the poiskem, but if a person which has a good eyesight, he could see it, although most of the people do not have good eyesight, geht sich dran die Gede von Isser. Was ist schwach geworden? Das sagt, man kann sehen in der Line ein. Since it's in der Line, also du sam Seufer, du chivas sam Seufer, das immer Kiefel Amat Weiss, chivas Shaivet Alayvi, and it's interesting, the Shloach Kodesh writes in his Sefer, in the Mamar of Kedushas Vachilas, in Kifit Gimel, he writes like this. Gam hineni di eschem, I'm telling you, mach mas hakenimas haketanas hanikrum milben. Milben is the tiny worms which is in flour. In flour, that's milben. That's one of the things which is... Zug the shlu, I'm asking you, because the milben are very tiny, regiling liyas mamayakais, it's used, it's a rugel, it should be summer. B'chol ha'payres ha'yevaishas, all the dried foods, kegon floman, v'rojena, means roshinkas, gdoile mekitanim, v'chayin mine kidneys, beans, v'oires rice v'doichen. Again, what is doichen? Millet, okay. In your city which you went, sent for the children which moved away from him, in your city which you went, you're not used to looking for this. Wie milse de schiche, and it's a thing which you see it constantly. We kamen pommen bekele kedoische Prague. Usarti kolashike shemoichen durmaili. I gave out a decree. Nobody could buy all these kind of fruits, all this kind of food which I just mentioned, because why? The people who are boidik have to have a good eyesight. The kama pumo botkin. A lot of times they were boidik. The omri that they don't see anything and it's clean. And then another person came and showed you, give a kick. Look where it is. Come on, some guy who knows what to look and where to look, and he showed you, and I could contest to it. There was once in the Shiva Spring Valley in Monsey, they made the Beit Kitulum were making a public learning how we to look, and they showed constantly worms. So one of the guys said, you brought Miss Probably things which you knew you had worms. Miss Probably you play around with it. So one of the guys says, no problem, go out in the store and bring any bag which you feel is fresh, it looks good. Go ahead, let's try it out. He came back in public. He came back and it said for that guy or for other guys, look at it. And everybody said, we don't see anything. And we don't see anything. Yeah? Then he took it and started showing things which were scrapped. Things which were scrapped. Ich habe es beigewohnt. And the Botkin right away saw it. And it was a thing which he saw. It's not a thing which it's a thing which you see. People who are not used to and they don't know what to look and where to look and how to look, of course they're not going to see it. But Akapunim, since you could see it, it is a thing which is visible. Guide us around the gate of an Isser and says, Osir min ha-toyre. Now, sometimes you can have worms or flies, which is not that easy to find, not because it's small, not because it's so tiny, because the background, it is camouflaged. Yeah, you have white thrips in flower, which the flower is white, the thrips is white. You have on the green leaves, you're going to find thrips, which is green. So it's not because it's small or what, it is because it's camouflaged. And if you don't know exactly what to wear, then you look around, you don't see anything. Except if it's creeping, mamash, you could see it. But if not, that's not a heter. Because since it's not a line, and since you're not a line with the eyes without a microscope, without a magnifying glass, it is awesome. Sometimes you have also worms, which is inside in the leaf. It's not on top. It's tunnels, yeah? Chaim David will probably attest to you how many times you check celery and you see, we have the salmon, once you see the tunnel, there's a worm inside. And most of the times when we cut up in such a case, you're going to find a worm. Sometimes you're not going to find it because it's already, it left already. But Hakapunam, there are simunam which will tell you there's a worm. But sometimes if you don't know what the simunam are, so it's inside in a leaf and you don't see it. So that's not a heter, it's not a lanaim, it's only you don't know what to look. Therefore, you think it's clean. But if there is taka nicht a zach, that you're not a lime, is the shusar. Now, it goes even more. Rav Poiskim hold that if it is a dot which you could see, but you don't know what it is, and a member will tell you this is a worm or this is a fly, it's also manatoyre because you see it. Although you don't recognize it, but you see it. So that's also a thing. Sometimes it's tiny. It's a shoot. I have a chart from one of the people. Botkin gave me a chart of the size of what kind of every trip, how big it is. We're talking about 5 millimeter, 5.5, very 5 millimeters, or very interesting how big it is. And what is considered not a lime, and when it's not a lime, but most people take it, which is almost, and that's how small. Yeah, there's a charge thing. The bot can know exactly what it is. But if a thing, and this is a cycle which you can find constantly, you find something and you're not going to see exactly what it is because you're not mimcha. They know the mimcha see right away that it has a tiny thing which thing on. But the person is not used to it. It's I had it upstairs with Takamat. Boy, they gave in the letters, and they found a small dot. Just for the fun of it. It's not a big deal. So you throw it out, you wash it. You don't throw it out, you wash it. But I had Baruch Shmaruf always goes with my loop. I showed him with the loop. You see, I says, wow, you can see mamish the feet on top. So again, only because we saw something. I wanted to show him that that's a problem. You don't have to look with the loop. Again, once you see something, it is kedai to have a loop to because sometimes it's only a schmitz and it's nothing. Sometimes it's, especially by cashews, cashew sometimes is only a piece of the shell stayed over. And that's all. If it's fresh, Costco, you're not going to find too much worms in cashews, but you're going to find brown pieces, and you're going to think it's a worm. You're going to throw it away. It's not a worm. So you give a look. You see, it's not. Depends which company. But Costco is very fresh, so therefore, I can put him. So this is the nikida. This has to be. This has to not even if you see it, even though if you don't recognize what it is, and the memcha will tell you it's recognizing. That's awesome. Now another thing we have to know: the eggs of the toloim and of the flies are also osir. Osir men atoyre. That's rough poskim. Now it's do bother them, but come on, rough poskim hold that it's osir men atoyre.
Why with all 11?
The what?
With all 11?
What do you mean all the 11?
All 11, 6 11 too, or 5 11 or 4 11?
Yeah, if it's a bite, it's a share. Yeah,
it's not sheretz.
It is, but in them is not the sheretz. In them, bites is a.
It's not tangle. It's not tangle.
Nein, aber der du sagst dort, lauf raus, a poskem as der sheretz, dus is auch tuser. Is auch tuser. No was dem, man setzt es an achillig bald na luchen, man sind eine Kinder. And therefore, sagen the poskem, that therefore, you have to be very careful of leaving like protein, like meat, fish, these kind of things, you leave outside somewhere. There's flies which come and can drop sometimes a egg, and then it creeps out. Yeah, I heard one guy over here told me a story. He bought a piece of meat, and they wanted to make a grill. And once they wanted to put it into on the grill, the worm started. What happened from the egg, from the heat, it started popping out. Yeah, so again. I can put it on my bring noch more. It's a zach. You have to look again. It's a zach. Push it. Don't put it outside because this is very hard to recognize to see it. But I can put them. So what?
If it's closed.
If it's sealed properly, I assume not. If it's vacuum, I don't think it should. A worm could creep in. It's not packaged well, and it stays for a while outside. It can have problems. Now, even a worm which is not a full worm, it's only a piece of worm, is also menatoire. Also menatoire. A stickel for a worm is auch tuser. Only when is it mitter? When it's got mixed together with other things, and since it's bottled one. Usually a worm does not get bottled, because we have a klal in halacha, beria eine bottle. A beria, which is a full beria, wird nicht bottled, even by elef. So therefore, that's one of the biggest problems which we have, that if you have worm, you have a big soup, it doesn't get bottled. Why? Because it's a beria. If something is missing from this worm, even a one tiny thin leg, then it's a shonish kaberi, it's weight bottle. Now, if you know it, you can see it, it's also menatoire. But at least if you cannot see it, it's mixed together in a vegetable soup, and it's over here you have one, and then you know it was whatever. I don't know how you know it, but I can put them. If it is a piece fell in, or a worm which a piece fell out, a tiny piece is not. It's a shonish kamperia. Then it's weight bottle. But the iser is even a piece. Even a piece is bottle. But a real class which is full is ein weight nicht bottle. Another locha is a zoi. There's a locha that you have fruit or vegetables which is mixed b'teluam, even when it's mixed b'teluam. We're going to go again, what does it mean mixed b'teluam? But again, I think which is mixed b'teluam. If it went through 12 months being not preserved, right? If it went, well, it was 12 months went through from when they took it off from the tree, is a smitter to eat. You have to just give a look outside. You have to look, because if you see something, but if you don't see, you don't have to check it more than that. Because what?
months is went off the tree?
12 months when it went off on the tree.
Maybe anything else went in.
What? I'm in it. 12 months which went off the tree, then zoeken we in Savos as sich darf schon nicht beudig sein. Why? But the klal is a barrier which doesn't have doesn't have a spine, doesn't have those, could not stay 12 months, cannot be more than 12 months. So automatically we will say it will get 12 months, instead of werden ka'afra alle druschen nachsen von der Remu, ka'afra ba'al, becomes to the offer. But that's only with one condition. It is only in condition that it is stored in a proper way that it cannot come in other flies or worms after it's stored. A lot of things which we store and we don't store it well, and most of the time that's why it gets worm, not because it was born on the tree with worms. It is because we didn't store it well. That's one of the reasons also summer people open up flour and they don't store it properly, then goes in more. So if it is, but we're talking about if it's stored properly. If it's stored properly, and there's not a chashash that it will come in more worms in a vendik, such a case we're going to say, if it went through 12 months, it's fine. The Prichudish wants to say 6 months is enough. So Machloikas, he wants to rely on 6 months. The Master Skumas Apostle has to be 12 months. It's not too practical, this halacha by us, because if you don't, it depends how, we're not talking about a way that it went through 12 months when it's in a can, let's say. If it's vacuum packed, or it's in a can, or it's in a freezer, all these things keeps, the same as it keeps the meat, it keeps the worm too. So you're talking about, for instance, things which is 12 months on, 12 months, that means peaches, that means dried stuff, dried fruits, which is basically a thing which you didn't put in choimus, didn't put in salt, you didn't put in things which keeps it. Therefore, in such a case, if it goes to 12 months, then it's okay. So it's not very practical, because these kind of things, even after a while, it's going to become basically, if it's going to come new bugs, new flies are going to come in. So therefore, it's not practical. But if what always does that he had the fruit or whatever, and it's stored such a way that you could keep it, and it won't basically come new flies, then is the halacha that if it is 12 months or at least 6 months, we could have some mariba, of 6 months of the prichudash, then it's not a problem. If you have worms or shrutzum which was burned in the oven, and it became aphrodara, is zuk the mechaber zuk, you could rely on it only for a choyle. For a person, you cannot rely, but if lechoyle, such a thing, if you didn't do it lekitchila for them, then you could rely on such a thing again. It's ochet nicht too very practical, because some people took this halacha and they take yerukas and they go it over the fire, and they said, okay, so now there's not a problem of worm. Aber sin nicht so pushet, weil the post comes include as the Rash besucht is only for a choil can sich verlassen. In ochet, if it goes through it, hevel for orders not enough, it's going to help, has to be takke. Oven we see in an oven, sie geworden durchgebacken. So again, what? No, not lim, but it gets baked automatisch, because zefaltes. What? For instance, I'll give you a much which is practical. The Moshe Vaya wants to say, in such a case, if you have what is it called, sesame seeds, and you didn't see anything but sesame seeds could be infested if it's not properly old. So in such a case, even if you didn't check it and you put it on your challah, since you bake it in the oven, such a case you could rely that said golf. But regularly, this is nicht. What? Afra, it's considered afra. The delusion of a chabra. No, chabra the remove is afra.
So even if you see it.
What?
Even if you see it.
Oh, is that zogen ze nein? As when you see it, you should take it off. So viel so. But dann mit afra gedaf is boy gesagt. Okay, so now let's go to the next shlaf. Bugs which come on yerukas, there's a locha sheretz hashoyres aluretz. That's the delusion of Torah. So it has to be shoyretz. Yeah. If it is not shoyretz, it is, for instance, you have a bug which was created in a peach. It was born in the peach. And it never went out. It didn't creep. Went out, it's still over there. If it didn't happen on the tree. If it happens on the tree, any worm, fly, whatever, which happens, was created on the tree when the pyre was on the tree, that's called sheresh hashoyres al-huretz. Why? Why is it called sheresh hashoyres al-huretz? Because that's uretz. It's connected to the tree, and the tree is on the uretz. That's considered sheresh hashoyres al-huretz, and sevetzan user min hatoyre. If it became after it was cut off, if it never crept, it's still over there in the same place, is a if it started creeping, that means it went out, came back, went out, it came back, then but if it is in such a case, which we see, this is such a place, which over there is geboren geworden, it never moved, is mitzad alucha, is it nicht kein problem. Even if it didn't, not the whole worm went out, but a part of the worm went out. You have a worm sticking out. That's not a problem. But if you have it inside mamash, it's not a problem. And also, if you went to the pit, if you went to the pit of the peach, you have a peach. You went to the pit and it crept back. It should be the roch usa. Das heißt noch shoyretz. Only when it's what?
Has a pit different than the fruit?
Die sagen das dafke bebuser ha-apri. If you went out on the pit, and no one is zurückgekommen, heißt das, if it's a shoyres. So, Mamaila, it can mean from the Zabelach is if it goes travels from one fruit to other fruit. But the Shana said, only hatter which we say that the Torah is is when we know that it was beschaffen, created in the pre, and it didn't go out and didn't come back. So Mamaila, well, Menschen say, oh, hab I had, weiß ich, beschaffen geworden in der Peire, so therefore it's fine. The only problem is, whenever you have a suffix, is a suffix deraisa. So basically, as I said, the mechaber. Pirish sli became wormy. The suffix imasli b'mechiber betulish. We have a suffix, maybe it came already when it was already on the tree. Maybe it was after. Is also bachila. Suffix is also, we're talking about the deraisa. So kimtos, every pyre, stamp pyre which you buy from the store, you always have a suffix. If it is mixing betaluam, has a problem. That means people, and why do I stress this again? Because people have a misconception. People say, if you open a peach and you see a worm, it's not a problem. Because it's not sheresh hashoyres. So the question is, first of all, maybe it was already when it was on the tree. But let's assume maybe it wasn't on the tree. You know for sure it's not on the tree. But maybe it crept already out and came back. Crept on the pit and came back. So therefore, Bapoel, it's not too... In some of the shehetim, it's schemas of halazim. The only thing which you can rely when we see worms and you want to eat dafki, you want to have the protein of worm, is the cheese. Cheese, French. Go to French, friends. Yeah? The French cheese, they have all kind of cheeses which are full of worms, and you see it creeping. I was 2 or 3 years ago somewhere, I was in France. And there was I was walking in the street, and I saw a cheese store that has cheese, and there was a big smell coming out. So gestinken, mama share. But I decided, let's go. I heard a French cheese. I went in. They had over there cheese. Small. It was not a big store, a tiny store, but had cheeses, which was blue, green, all kind of colors, from shimmel, from mold. And they had cheese. They saw the worm creeping on it, and it was expensive cheese. He asked me, "You want to taste it?" I don't want it. I don't want to look at it. He said, "You don't know what you don't want. It's expensive cheese." There was the cheese which was $40-50 a slice. So he wanted me. I should taste. I'll be a good customer for America. Do me a favor. But dort sucht aber Shichanurach, worm which is dancing in the cheese. This is the einzige Sach. If you really want to have the proteins from worms, that is even in Dortni is even when it's creeping outside, but as long it doesn't go out and come back.
Why?
But also steht nicht genoeg. But bei Gewinner, so ich es, das heißt, das ist heilig für die Heinere Visaya, and if it went out, fell off and it came back, or from one sheet to other sheet, that's something else. But at least, if it didn't went out, habe ich nicht kein Problem. But if it can, sucht der Mechaber, sucht aber der Mechaber allein, bringt er, wie es machmiren, der Arm machmiren, and la Masse, the Ashken, the Svardische, the Poisken sind mehr machmir auf den Kide. I don't know, the Ashken who's going to eat it, but I can put him, is the Svardam Mungen, the Yesh Machirim B'chalayfen. Okay, now we're going to get a different subject, which is now about the fish. There are fish which has worm. Now, if you have worms, which is, for instance, carp fish, yeah? If you have in the head, it's full of infested with the head, so that's why you don't never eat carp, you don't eat the head. You have fish which you have in the head, you have fish which you have in the stomach. Any of these talom, which is begif hadog, yeah, if it's in the intestines, if it's in the head, it is an usar. Steigt nicht genorach, gepasst nicht genorach, and it's very important to look at the guys that steigt nicht genorach, if it's found by b'saradog, if you found it in the flesh of the fish, yeah, which you find in wild caught salmon, you can find it. You can find it in some. There's a list of what kind of fish. If you find it in the flesh, zug the mechaber says mitter. And it's from a gemura, sagt the schil, marine, whatever. The gemura read as marine shebeheim is user. That means worm from an animal is an user. If the name like the roses from a fish is okay. In the mile past in the mechaber, it is okay. The Rambam hat rausgeworfen the heter, and the Rambam halt as is user. But so again, we are talking now worm which is found in the besar hadog. There is zug the mechaber. I'm not passionate the mechaber. It's not a problem. The Rambam halt user. The mechaber passt nicht. The mechaber means the shechanurich b'si Yosef does not pass like the Rambam, and the Rambam halt say is mitter. So therefore, years ago, Tafshin Zion, there was a whole balagan. They found a fish in the fish. They used to find in the salmons. Used to find worm. You can still find it. You can still see it, and it's in the fish. You have a small bubble. It's like plastic. In them, there's a worm curved around, and that was the whole shala. Is it okay or it's not okay? It's kosher, it's kosher. And over there, the consensus of, I would say, 99.9% of poskim, it's not a problem. And everybody ate weiter the fish except bothered him. Because it's not a problem. Saradog, I don't care. 15 years ago, there was a new problem with a different worm, which is called anisakis. Anisakis is a worm which you find it in the intestines of the animal, and you find it also in the basaradog. Over here, Hamashana ends the problem. What's the problem? If you find it in the basaradog, it's okay. So I don't care what's doing in the intestines, what's doing in the maya dog. It's in the boss. So that if the shechanur passed on a busa dog, and should that body is on the ma'ayin, but my name, it's okay. And this is how most of the poskim pass. As what? If you find this anasakis, this worm you find in the basar dog, it's not a problem. You can eat it. Yochlanum is muin. Va'alzeh soichim rava oilam. Rava oilam philosophy of this, and that's why most people will eat in the canned tuna, which is wild caught, which have this problem. Poskim relying because again, mechaber zukt das oim, but pashta mechaber we don't pass like the Rambam, therefore it's not a problem. But there are poskim like the Shaivat Alayvi, Rav Osner, Lehoiris Nusen, Musen Gestetner, Gdoli Yisroel Bezmanayni, which assert. Why did they assert? Because they say, whenever we don't find it only Besaradog, like the first worm which we had, Tufshin in Zayin, that you didn't find only Besaradog, that is a thing which is, this is the Shechanur of mine. But if you feel that you have it also in the Ma'ayan, who tells you what is to say that it's created in the Basar? If it's Basar, how come it's in the Busa? What is the reason why Basar dog is also? Because it's created there. But if you see it also in the tests, that this worm was also came from the Basara dog into the Ma'ayin. Maybe opposite. It came from the Ma'ayin and Basara dog. Then came a Yid. His name is Reb Schneider Zalman Revach. He gave her a cipher on Tolum, same as the Ramosha Y, a cipher on Tolum. He also gave her a cipher on Tolum. Ramosha Y cipher is B'dikas Hamuzin Kalucha. And then his cipher is Talas Shuni. And he made research. And he said, that according to the scientists, that this worm is the ocean is full of them. Ocean, I don't know if it's the ocean or some kind of areas. It's full of them. And the big fish swallows it. The fish swallows it, goes into his intestines. And then once you kill him, since the body becomes cold and he's looking for the worm, creeps into the bossa. So he says this worm is a thing which comes from outside. So if it comes from outside, we can say smatrza. Let's assume it is like it is true. But is it neder l'anaim when it's in the water, or it's not neder l'anaim? If it's not neder l'anaim, and you only see it when it's in Basara dog, it's also considered it's geworden dort. But if it's so, that's even a machloks and scientists if you're and nicht neder l'anaim. So the Masse, again, Ravosna mit Heures Nussen, was gescheit mit other Poiskim haben es geasset, and only weil Nefesh haben es ungenehm zum Bimach mit sein. But, wir können nicht passen so. I personally do not eat take cans from wild-caught salmon, which in the cans, dagim, because of this problem. And that's why also I always baby salmon I buy, because I have an issue with wild caught. But again, halaluche paske nicht für Mensch. You could eat it in. For me, privat will ich machen, was man mal hat geasset. Ravoser, aber bei Poil paske nicht lamal, and that's the luche. As bei Ikeradin is a smitter to eat. The reason why is again, Shechnurich sucht as bei Basar dog is mitter. Now. I have to come to a scientist who is going to tell me that they come in from the ocean, come into the intestines, goes into it. The Teure is nicht gegeben geworden for the scientists. The Teure is gegeben geworden for uns Jiden. We don't rely on scientists. There's a brief from the Rebbe in Amina Made, which the Rebbe writes over there, a whole piece that we don't go according to science when it comes to Teure mitzvahs. The science can tell me a lot of things. I don't care. And the reason is, could be, for instance, science says there's no such thing that something gets kinner. A person is allowed to kill a kinner in Shabbos. A kinner, what is a kinner? Lice. Zukt of them, what's the reason? Why? Because it's not pure vruv for a zuche van a kaiva. So, therefore, nor a balchai, we say pura v'ru chai, heist a balchai. Or if it's not pura v'ru chai, it's not a balchai, it makes haigena. So the question begs, today's science says there's no such thing as anything gets created out of air. Mina ipush, there's no such thing. Everything comes from a tiny egg. A fly puts down an egg. You might not see it, but it falls on an egg, and from the egg comes a fly. There's something comes, when something gets rotten and becomes wormy, no such thing it becomes wormy for sich allein. That's the whole science. It has to come from a thing which is gemacht geworden, like it's fin. So, as a science, will we rely on it? Of course not. Of course not. In the Poskim Zugen, as a kinner, make man hargen Shabbos. Now, what is a kinner? You said lice. It's not in the portion. On some points, we want to say it's not lice. Why? Because lice, we see the egg. How many mothers will busy full days to take out the eggs from the daughter's hair? So we see it. So we can assume. So andere Poskim Zugen, andere, which I don't remember the name. It kinnem was the shechnur means that in that we don't see. Now, although it comes from an egg, but we don't see it. As long as we don't see it, it doesn't exist. That's why I mentioned at the beginning of the shiur. Any worm which we don't see, geht nicht dran der Geder auf ner l'anaim, es exists nicht. I be poil exists, I don't care if it's poil exists. If we don't see it, it doesn't exist. So therefore, let's go back to Anasakas. Anasakas If you don't see it, it's avada avada. That hat sich schon die ganze Schale. Das heißt, dass sie beschaffen geworden bei Psara Dog. Although it comes maybe from an egg, but again, we don't see it. But even if it comes maybe from outside, weil the signs sagen so, we don't rely on signs, and therefore, passt man as es mitter. And again, noch einmal, la lucha is es mitter. Bal Nefesh wants to be machmar, yes, there's thousands of people are machmar on this anasakas, and therefore, dagim makes a special run, which is called Dagyam, which is basically made from farm-raised baby salmon, because that doesn't have this issue. And therefore, they make a run because they have enough customers. For 5 people, they don't make such a run. They make a special run, and you could buy them, I don't know, it's probably over here too, but one of the most groceries in the Chraynische Welt, you could buy Dagyam as a new name, Dagyam, because of this problem. So I just want to bring it around because somebody is going to tell you metunish, is to wissen as me make, but somebody eine will privat mach sagen, not a problem, but again, you can nicht ask na Sach, wo es der Shichanurich passen damit, although der Ravosne will zielagen, in some of the Choch der Rambam, wo the Rambam says, the whole halachi, he pushes away. The Rambam doesn't pass in the Mechaber. So betzirif. But again, most poskim did not rely on it. Again, there are some poskim again which pass in us, and that's why ich persönlich beim Machen gewesen, weil ich kann sich mit einem Undemochen, you can live without that, and he has a good point. The Rambam paskin nicht so, although the Mashiach paskin that is with the Rambam, but maybe he's talking about a different worm which doesn't come from outside. It's like the Tushini and Zion worm. So therefore, Tushini and Zion worm, nobody's machmer. And Tushin, that other one was Samach, somewhere, I remember which year. It's a big balagan. If anybody has the, it's the Chachma Geduk in Oris Rule. We had it twice, this balagan. Oh, you could also see the whole subject, by the way, in Alapairik. In Alapairik we have the subject. Okay, this is the Gaba. Teluma nimmt sie begifadak.